Milo loved the lake. Every morning the sun would rise over the calm water, and the golden light would make the waves sparkle. He would stand on the small wooden dock, feeling the breeze on his face and breathe in the fresh air. The lake was his favorite place in the world. He did not care about fancy cars or expensive gadgets. For Milo, happiness was a simple life and peaceful water. On weekends, Milo took his small pontoon boat out. He liked the gentle rocking of the boat and the quiet sounds of nature. Birds flew over the water, fish jumped near the surface, and the green trees reflected on the lake. He loved to watch the clouds move slowly across the sky. Sometimes he would invite friends or neighbors to join him. They would bring sandwiches, drinks, and stories. Laughter floated over the water, and Milo felt free. One Monday morning, Milo went to check the mailbox. Among the usual letters, there was one with a bright red seal from the HOA. Milo frowned. HOA letters were never fun. He opened it carefully. His eyes widened as he read. The letter said he was fined $3,000 for unauthorized boating on the community lake. Milo read it again and again, hoping he had made a mistake. But the words were clear. $3,000, just for using his small pontoon boat. Milo could not believe it. He had lived in the community for 3 years and had always followed the rules. He had paid fees, attended meetings, and respected neighbors. He had never caused trouble. How could the HOA decide that his peaceful boating was wrong? Milo felt a mix of anger and confusion. This fine did not make sense. He picked up his phone and called the HOA office. A polite voice answered, but it was full of repetition. Yes, Mr. Milo, you have been fined. Please pay $3,000. This is according to Rule Section 12, Paragraph 4. Milo asked for clarification. He explained that he had used the lake safely without disturbing anyone. The person on the phone replied, Our decision is final. Please pay the fine. Milo's frustration grew. He hung up and sat on his porch staring at the letter. Milo thought about what this fine meant. $3,000 was a lot for him. It could pay for a small vacation or fix some home repairs. But it was not just about the money. It was about fairness. Milo had always believed that rules should protect people, not punish them without reason. This fine felt like punishment for enjoying something simple and harmless. He walked toward the lake. The water reflected the sky, calm and peaceful, unaware of the chaos in his mind. Milo ran his hand over the railing of the dock and looked at his pontoon boat tied gently to the edge. It seemed to him that the lake was waiting, quietly asking him not to give up. Milo sat down and thought. He needed a plan. He could not let this unfair fine ruin the one place that made him happy. Milo spent the next few hours thinking carefully. He could pay the fine and feel bitter. He could ignore it and risk more trouble with the HOA. Or he could find another way, a way to show that the rules were not always fair. He remembered the mornings when neighbors waved at him from their own boats. He remembered children laughing as they skimmed the water with small rafts. The lake belonged to more than just the HOA. That night, Milo could not sleep. He kept turning the fine over in his mind. He thought about the rules, the letters, and the power of the HOA. They had authority over the community, but did they really own the water? Could they stop him from enjoying a peaceful activity that caused no harm? Milo felt a spark of determination. Maybe he could change the situation. Maybe he could show the HOA that fairness mattered more than strict control. The next morning, Milo went to the local library. He opened books about community laws, property rights, and homeowners associations. He took notes carefully. Every sentence seemed important. He learned that while the HOA had certain rules, their power was limited. They could make guidelines for the community, but they could not take away rights that belonged to residents according to local law. Milo felt hope rising. He realized he could challenge the fine, but he had to do it smartly. Milo also decided to talk to neighbors. He walked through the streets, smiling politely at everyone he met. Some of them were in gardens, some walking dogs, some sitting on benches. Milo asked if they had ever had problems with the HOA. Surprisingly, many people nodded. Some had small boats and kayaks but had never been allowed to use them freely. Some had floating platforms for children, but had received warnings. Everyone seemed tired of strict rules. Milo listened carefully. He shared the story of the $3,000 fine. At first, neighbors were shocked. They could not believe that someone could be fined so much for a simple activity. Milo explained that he was not just upset about the money. He wanted fairness. He wanted the lake to be open for safe and happy use. Gradually, he noticed smiles and nods. People agreed. The HOA had been too strict. The lake should belong to everyone who lived there, not just to the rules of a small committee. By the end of the week, Milo had a plan forming in his mind. He would not just fight the fine alone. He would create a way for all residents to manage the lake together. He thought about forming a new association, a group that could legally oversee boating activities, safety rules, and fair use of the lake. If he could get enough support from neighbors, they could show the HOA that community strength mattered more than control. Milo started drafting letters, outlining ideas for a lake association. He wrote about safety, enjoyment, and fairness. He suggested small improvements like cleaning the water, adding safe docks, and making sure children had safe play areas. He imagined families smiling, boats moving gently across the water, and neighbors greeting each other warmly. The thought made him happy. Milo knew this could be the start of something bigger than just a fight over a fine. He also visited local offices to understand the legal steps. Milo was patient and careful. He learned how to register an association, gather signatures, and hold meetings. Each step seemed complicated, but he felt confident. He had the community on his side, and he had the law on his side. Most importantly, he had determination. Milo believed that if people worked together, they could turn unfair rules into fair ones. One afternoon, Milo walked to the lake with his pontoon boat. The sun shone brightly and the water reflected every color of the sky. He untied the boat and sat on it for a while, thinking. The gentle rocking of the boat calmed his mind. He imagined a future where families laughed on the lake, neighbors shared stories, and children played safely. Milo smiled. This fine had started as a problem, but now it felt like the beginning of an opportunity. By the evening, Milo returned home with a clear decision. He would not pay the fine. He would not ignore it. Instead, he would take steps to make the lake fair for everyone. He would talk to neighbors, gather support, and create a new system. Milo felt excited. For the first time, the fight with the HOA did not feel stressful. It felt like a challenge he was ready to meet. Milo sat by his desk looking at the fine again. It seemed smaller now, almost like a spark that started a fire. He wrote down his first steps, talked to neighbors, researched laws, draft proposals, and plan meetings. Each step gave him energy. Milo knew it would take time, patience, and effort, but he also knew that fairness was worth fighting for. That night, Milo went to bed with a smile. The lake was calm. The stars reflected on the water, and a sense of hope filled his mind. He dreamed of families, boats, and laughter. He dreamed of a future where the lake belonged to everyone, and rules were fair and clear. Milo knew that this was just the first part of a bigger story. A story where he would stand up, take action, and make a difference. The unfair fine had awakened determination in Milo. It had started as a problem, but now it was a challenge, an adventure, and a chance to change the community. Milo was ready. The lake was waiting, and so was the future. Milo woke up early the next morning, full of energy. The sun had barely risen, but he was already thinking about the lake and the unfair fine. He knew he could not act without understanding the rules fully. Milo had learned one important lesson from the letter. The HOA had power, but power alone was not enough. Knowledge was stronger than fear, and preparation was the key. He started his day by sitting at his desk with a notebook and a pen. Milo opened the HOA rulebook that he had collected from the office. He read carefully, line by line, making notes. Each rule seemed strict and confusing at first. Some rules were about landscaping, some about building structures, and some about boating. Milo noticed that the section about the lake was the most complicated. It mentioned authorized use, permits, and fines for violations. The words were intimidating, but Milo did not feel scared. He felt curious. He spent hours writing down every detail. He compared the rules with local laws he could find online. Milo discovered something interesting. The HOA could make rules for residents, but it could not claim ownership of the lake water itself. Local laws said the lake could be used safely by all residents. Milo realized that the fine they had sent him might not have legal backing. This discovery gave him hope. After finishing his research at home, Milo decided to talk to someone who understood community law better. He made an appointment with Mr. Harlow, a friendly local lawyer who helped people with property questions. Milo explained the situation clearly, showing the letter from the HOA and the notes he had taken. Mr. Harlow listened carefully, nodding as Milo spoke. "You are correct," Mr. Harlow said finally. "The HOA has rules, but it cannot take away rights that belong to residents. They could try to enforce fines, but if challenged, you have strong support under the law." Milo felt a rush of relief and confidence. He knew now that he could fight the fine, but he had to do it smartly. He could not rush. He needed a plan. Milo spent the next few days thinking about his plan. He did not want to act alone. He remembered all the neighbors he had spoken to before. He decided to visit them again. Milo walked through the neighborhood with a folder in his hand. Each house he visited was familiar. He smiled and waved politely before explaining his idea. "Have you ever had problems with the lake rules?" Milo asked a neighbor named Anna. Anna shook her head but then nodded slowly. "Yes, sometimes I wanted to take my small boat out, but they told me I needed special permission. It was confusing," she said. Milo nodded. He had heard similar stories from other neighbors. Everyone seemed tired of complicated rules. Milo shared his plan. "I want to form a new association for the lake," he explained. "It would include all residents. We can make fair rules, improve safety, and make sure everyone enjoys the lake without trouble." Some neighbors looked surprised. Others smiled. Milo felt encouraged. Slowly they began to discuss ideas. Families wanted safe docks, children wanted space for floating games, and older residents wanted quiet zones. Milo listened carefully and took notes. By the end of the week, Milo had gathered a group of 10 neighbors who were interested in helping. They met at Milo's house and discussed the details. Milo explained the steps. First, they needed to register the association legally. Then, they could make proposals for the lake. Finally, they could present their ideas to the rest of the community. Everyone agreed that this plan made sense. Milo realized that he had more work to do. He needed to be careful and thorough. He spent several days preparing legal documents, drafting proposals, and researching community management strategies. Milo even visited the town office to make sure the steps he planned were correct. He wanted to avoid mistakes. If they did everything properly, the new association would have strong support and legal authority. While working, Milo also spent time on the lake. He tested his pontoon boat, measured distances, and imagined improvements. He thought about benches, safety signs, and docks. He considered small floating platforms for children and areas for kayaks. Milo wanted the lake to be enjoyable, safe, and peaceful for everyone. Each idea made him more excited. The unfair fine had started as a problem, but now it was giving him motivation. One afternoon, Milo invited neighbors to the lake for a small meeting. They sat on the dock watching the water. Milo explained the association's purpose and benefits. "This is not about fighting the HOA," he said. "It is about fairness, safety, and enjoyment. If we work together, we can make sure everyone uses the lake safely and happily." His words felt simple, but they had power. Neighbors nodded, smiles appearing on their faces. Milo could see the hope in their eyes. The neighbors shared their own experiences. Some had boats, some had small floating gardens, and some had children who wanted to play safely. They told stories of confusing rules and unnecessary warnings. Milo listened carefully. Each story strengthened his determination. He wrote everything down in his notebook. He wanted to include these experiences in the proposals to show the importance of a fair association. Milo also taught the neighbors about local rules. He explained that if they followed the proper steps, the new association could manage boating activities, safety, and lake improvements legally. Neighbors seemed excited. They began to imagine a lake full of families, laughter, and peaceful enjoyment. Milo felt a sense of pride. He was no longer fighting alone. The community was ready to act. At night, Milo sat on the porch with a cup of tea thinking. The work was not easy. Legal documents, meetings, and research took time. But Milo felt energized. He knew that preparation was key. He reminded himself that the unfair fine had opened an opportunity to bring positive change. Instead of being frustrated, he now had a goal. He would build an association that benefited everyone. Milo also planned communication strategies. He wrote letters and flyers to inform other residents about the idea. He wanted them to understand that this was not a fight for personal revenge, but a way to create fairness. Milo knew that if neighbors understood the benefits, they would join. He also prepared presentations with pictures of the lake, maps, and safety proposals. Everything had to be clear, simple, and convincing. A week later, Milo met with the neighbors again. They reviewed the flyers and the proposals. Everyone contributed ideas. Some suggested floating platforms for safe swimming. Others recommended signs to indicate boating rules, and a few suggested benches and picnic areas around the lake. Milo wrote down every idea. He wanted the final plan to be a mix of safety, fun, and beauty. The lake should feel welcoming for everyone. By the end of the meeting, Milo felt confident. The association plan was ready for registration. The neighbors were enthusiastic, and Milo had all the legal steps prepared. He realized that the unfair fine had actually helped him achieve something bigger. What started as frustration had turned into determination, knowledge, and community support. Milo smiled. The lake was about to change for the better. Milo spent the next few days registering the association officially. He went to the town office, filled out forms, and submitted documents. The process was long, but Milo remained patient. He knew that doing it properly would give the association strong legal standing. Each step he completed made him feel stronger. He was ready to face the HOA if they tried to intervene again. Meanwhile, neighbors began talking to other residents. Excitement spread through the community. Families began imagining the improved lake. Children talked about safe play areas, and adults looked forward to peaceful boating. Milo felt a deep sense of satisfaction. He realized that working together was powerful. The unfair fine had been a spark, but now the community had its own strength. One evening, Milo sat on his pontoon boat watching the sun set. The water reflected the orange and pink sky, and a gentle breeze moved the boat slightly. Milo felt calm and proud. He thought about the journey so far, the research, the meetings, the legal work, and the conversations with neighbors. Everything had prepared him for the next step, presenting the association to the entire community. Milo smiled, thinking about the future. The unfair fine had tried to stop him, but it had only inspired action. He felt ready to continue to make the lake a place of fairness, safety, and joy. With knowledge, planning, and community support, Milo knew that anything was possible. The lake belonged to everyone, and soon it would be managed in a way that made sense for all. Milo stayed on the water a little longer, enjoying the quiet and the reflection of the sun. He thought about the possibilities, about families laughing, boats moving gently, and neighbors greeting each other. Milo felt hope and excitement. The journey had only just begun, but the unfair fine had already sparked something extraordinary. Milo woke up early on Saturday, feeling a mixture of excitement and determination. The sun had barely risen over the lake, casting golden light across the calm water. Today was the day he would start turning his plan into reality. The unfair fine had been a problem, but now it had become an opportunity. Milo wanted to show the community that fairness and teamwork could change the rules and bring enjoyment back to the lake. He started by preparing the small pontoon boat. Milo cleaned it carefully, polished the seats, and made sure the ropes and safety equipment were in place. He wanted everything to be perfect. The lake was about to become a place for residents to gather and enjoy, and Milo wanted to make a good impression. He loaded small supplies into the boat: papers for neighbors, pens, maps of the lake, and even a few snacks for the meeting. By mid-morning, neighbors began arriving. Anna, the woman Milo had first spoken to, came with her small boat tied to the dock. A few families brought children on little rafts, and others came to observe and offer ideas. Milo smiled at everyone as they gathered. The atmosphere was calm and positive. People seemed excited about being part of something bigger than themselves. Milo began the meeting by explaining the purpose of the new lake association. "This is about fairness and safety," he said. "We are not trying to fight anyone. We are creating a system that allows everyone to enjoy the lake without confusion or unfair fines. We will manage boating activities, safety, and improvements together." His voice was calm, confident, and inviting. Neighbors nodded, clearly understanding his message. He handed out papers with a clear outline of the association's purpose, rules, and planned improvements. Milo explained each point in simple language. First, safety was the priority. There would be designated areas for children, signs to indicate boating rules, and life jackets available for anyone who needed them. Second, fairness would guide the rules. No one would be fined unfairly, and residents would have a voice in decisions. Third, improvements would make the lake enjoyable for everyone. Milo showed sketches of small docks, benches, and floating platforms for safe play. Neighbors shared their ideas eagerly. One suggested a floating garden where children could learn about plants while on the water. Another recommended a small picnic area with benches for families to rest. A few residents proposed quiet zones for people who wanted to enjoy the lake peacefully. Milo wrote down every suggestion carefully. He wanted everyone to feel included. The meeting became more than a discussion. It became a vision of a better lake for everyone. After the meeting, Milo and a few volunteers began practical work. They cleaned the dock area, removed trash from the water, and marked safe zones with small floating signs. Some neighbors helped place buoys to indicate boating lanes. The children laughed as they floated on small rafts nearby, enjoying the process. Milo felt a sense of pride. What had started as frustration over a fine was turning into teamwork, cooperation, and real change. Over the next few weeks, Milo continued organizing the association. He worked with neighbors to register it legally. They collected signatures from residents, documented their ideas, and submitted official forms to the town office. Milo made sure every detail was correct. The paperwork was long and sometimes confusing, but Milo remained patient. He knew that careful preparation would ensure the association's success. During this time, Milo also communicated with the HOA. He wrote letters explaining the purpose of the new lake association. He emphasized that it was fair, legal, and focused on community benefit. He invited HOA representatives to observe the improvements at the lake. Milo wanted to show them that this was not about conflict, but about creating a system that worked for everyone. While the HOA considered their response, Milo focused on the lake. He organized small events to bring the community together. On weekends, families came with boats, picnic baskets, and children eager to play. Milo ensured that safety was always a priority. Life jackets were available for everyone. Buoys marked boating lanes, and volunteers supervised floating platforms. The lake became lively, joyful, and peaceful all at once. Milo watched families laughing and felt a deep sense of satisfaction. One day, a neighbor named Samuel approached Milo. "I never imagined the lake could feel like this," Samuel said. "Before it was confusing and tense. Now it feels open, safe, and fun. Thank you for taking the lead." Milo smiled. "We all work together," he said. "The lake belongs to everyone. That is the most important part." Samuel nodded, clearly understanding Milo's vision. Milo continued teaching neighbors about the association's rules. He organized workshops to explain how decisions would be made, how safety would be ensured, and how improvements could be proposed. He made simple charts and diagrams to help everyone understand. Residents appreciated Milo's careful explanations. They felt empowered to participate in decisions and proud to contribute to the lake's development. As the association grew stronger, Milo began documenting everything carefully. He kept records of meetings, improvements, and safety checks. He also recorded feedback from residents. Milo knew that when it came time to present their work officially, strong documentation would be key. He wanted the HOA to see that the new association was professional, fair, and focused on community benefit. The children loved the floating platforms Milo had suggested. They played safely, learning about water and nature. Parents could watch without worry, knowing that Milo and the volunteers were keeping everyone safe. The lake became a place of learning, relaxation, and joy. Milo often sat on his pontoon boat watching the activity, feeling proud of what had been achieved. Word spread beyond the initial group of neighbors. Other residents became interested in joining the association. Milo welcomed them, explaining the purpose and rules clearly. He emphasized that every member's opinion mattered. Slowly, the lake community grew stronger, more united, and more enthusiastic. Milo realized that this sense of unity was as important as any improvements or legal steps. One morning, Milo received a letter from the town office. The registration of the association had been approved. Milo smiled, feeling a mix of relief and excitement. The association was now official. They could manage boating activities, enforce safety rules, and implement improvements legally. Milo knew that this was a turning point. The unfair fine had started a chain of events that led to a stronger, happier community. Milo called a meeting to celebrate the official registration. Neighbors came with boats, snacks, and children eager to play. Milo spoke to the group. "This is not just my achievement," he said. "It belongs to all of us. Together, we created a system that is fair, safe, and enjoyable. We turned a problem into an opportunity. and the lake is now a place for everyone. The crowd clapped and cheered, happy to be part of something meaningful. Over the next few weeks, the association implemented small improvements. Milo supervised the building of a simple dock, placed benches along the shore, and installed signs indicating safety zones. Volunteers helped clean the water and maintain the floating platforms. The lake began to look beautiful, welcoming, and well-organized. Residents felt proud of what they had achieved together. Even the children learned responsibility. They helped collect trash, mark safe areas with small flags, and guide others on how to use the platform safely. Milo watched them with a smile. The lake was not just a place of fun anymore. It was a place of learning, teamwork, and community spirit. The unfair fine had started as a challenge, but it had grown into a project that changed lives. Milo also made sure that communication with the HOA remained open and professional. He invited them to visit the lake and observe the improvements. He wanted to show that the association was legal, fair, and focused on community benefit. Milo hoped that the HOA would understand that cooperation was more effective than control. By the end of the month, the lake had transformed. The small pontoon boat that had started this journey became a symbol of change. Families gathered, children played safely, and neighbors shared laughter and stories. Milo felt proud of what they had achieved together. The unfair fine had been a spark, but now the community had grown stronger, united, and happy. Milo often stood on the dock, looking at the calm water. He thought about how far they had come. From frustration and confusion, the lake had become a place of safety, enjoyment, and community spirit. Milo smiled, knowing that this was only the beginning. With teamwork, knowledge, and determination, they could continue to improve the lake and make it a symbol of fairness for everyone. The unfair fine had tried to stop Milo, but instead, it had inspired him to take action, learn the rules, and unite the community. Milo felt confident that the lake was now in good hands. It belonged to the people, managed with care and enjoyed with joy. He looked forward to the days ahead, knowing that challenges could become opportunities and that fairness could always find a way. Milo woke up one bright morning, feeling a mixture of anticipation and determination. The lake was calm, reflecting the soft sunlight, and a gentle breeze moved the trees along the shore. For weeks, the community had worked together to improve. The lake and Milo had seen the positive changes firsthand. Families laughed, children played safely, and neighbors shared stories on the docks and boats. But Milo knew that the unfair fine from the HOA was still not fully resolved. It was time for a clear confrontation. He called a meeting with the neighbors, inviting every resident who had joined the new lake association. The goal was to present their progress and plan a strategy if the HOA tried to interfere. Milo wanted everyone to be confident, organized, and ready. As residents arrived, he noticed their excitement mixed with curiosity. They had all worked hard, and now it was time to show the results. Milo began the meeting by reviewing the accomplishments of the association. He listed improvements made around the lake, the small docks, floating platforms for children, benches along the shore, safety signs, and the organized boating lanes. He also highlighted the rules that the community had created together, emphasizing fairness, safety, and enjoyment. The residents nodded proudly, realizing how much they had achieved as a group. "Everything we have done is legal," Milo said firmly. "We followed the proper steps, registered the association, and made sure every improvement is safe and approved by the town. If the HOA tries to challenge us, we have all the proof we need. We are prepared." His voice was calm, but full of authority. The neighbors listened attentively, inspired by Milo's careful planning and leadership. The discussion then moved to potential HOA reactions. Some residents were worried. "What if they send more letters?" one neighbor asked. "Or try to take control of the lake again?" Milo reassured them. "If we stay calm, organized, and professional, we can handle it. We are not breaking any rules. We are protecting our community and our lake." The neighbors felt encouraged. Milo's confidence was contagious. Over the next few days, Milo prepared the documents needed for the showdown. He gathered evidence of the lake improvements, records of meetings, legal papers for the association registration, and signed statements from residents supporting the fair use of the lake. Milo also wrote a clear and professional letter to the HOA, inviting them to visit and observe the improvements. He wanted the HOA to see that the association was responsible, legal, and focused on community benefit. When the day arrived, the HOA representatives came to the lake. Milo greeted them politely and led them to the docks. Residents watched quietly, standing in small groups ready to support Milo if needed. Milo remained calm, explaining the purpose of the association and showing the progress made over the past weeks. The HOA representatives looked around, clearly surprised. The docks were well built, the floating platforms were safe, and the children were playing under careful supervision. Milo explained each improvement in detail, highlighting safety measures and community participation. "This is impressive," one of the representatives said finally. "We did not expect this level of organization and responsibility." Milo nodded. "We wanted to ensure the lake is fair, safe, and enjoyable for everyone. This is what our community worked for together." The residents felt proud. Their hard work had been recognized, and Milo's leadership had turned a frustrating fine into a demonstration of fairness and community spirit. The HOA representatives raised questions about rules and fines. Milo explained clearly, showing the legal registration of the association, the signed support of residents, and the documentation of improvements. He calmly explained that the fine was unfair and did not have legal backing. Milo's preparation and clarity left little room for argument. The representatives could see that the association had done everything correctly and with good intentions. One of the representatives spoke carefully. "We understand your position, but we still need to ensure that rules are followed. How will you manage disagreements among residents?" Milo smiled. "Our association has clear rules, and every member has a voice. If disagreements arise, we discuss them in meetings and make decisions together. Transparency and fairness guide every choice. This way, everyone feels included and respected." The HOA representatives nodded, realizing that Milo and the community had created a system that was organized, fair, and effective. During the visit, Milo also invited the HOA representatives to speak with residents. Families shared their experiences, explaining how the Lake Association had improved their enjoyment, safety, and sense of community. Children demonstrated the floating platforms, showing how carefully they were designed and used. The representatives listened quietly, clearly impressed by the involvement and cooperation of the residents. Milo watched with satisfaction. He had prepared carefully, and now the results spoke for themselves. After the tour, Milo led a small discussion with the HOA representatives. He calmly explained the benefits of the association, emphasizing fairness, safety, and enjoyment. He also highlighted the unnecessary stress caused by the unfair fine. "We are not here to create conflict," Milo said. "We want to ensure the lake is safe and enjoyable. Fairness matters more than control. The fine was unfair, and we hope it can be resolved with understanding and respect." The HOA representatives looked thoughtful. By the end of the day, it was clear that Milo's preparation and leadership had won the community's case. The HOA representatives admitted that the association was legal, organized, and responsible. They could not challenge the improvements or the fairness of the new rules. Milo had turned an unfair fine into a demonstration of unity, cooperation, and careful planning. The residents cheered quietly among themselves, proud of their achievement. Milo organized a small celebration with neighbors after the HOA left. Families gathered at the lake, enjoying the sun and the calm water. Children played on the floating platforms, adults shared snacks and stories, and Milo felt a deep sense of pride. The unfair fine had started as a problem, but now it had become an opportunity to show the power of community, fairness, and careful planning. During the celebration, Milo spoke to the group. "Today, we have shown that fairness and teamwork can overcome challenges. We have created a system that works for everyone. This is not just about boats or fines. It is about the strength of our community and the value of working together." The neighbors nodded, feeling inspired and grateful for Milo's leadership. Over the next few weeks, Milo continued to strengthen the association. He held regular meetings, encouraged residents to participate, and ensured that safety and fairness remained the top priorities. He also kept communication open with the HOA, making sure that any concerns were addressed calmly and professionally. Milo's careful approach prevented misunderstandings and showed that cooperation was more effective than conflict. The lake had transformed completely. What had started as frustration and an unfair fine had become a thriving community space. Children played safely, families gathered peacefully, and neighbors shared stories and laughter. Milo often sat on his pontoon boat, watching the activity, feeling proud of what they had accomplished together. The lake was no longer just a body of water. It was a symbol of fairness, teamwork, and determination. Milo also prepared for the possibility of future challenges. He continued documenting every improvement, every meeting, and every decision. He kept records of community support, legal registrations, and safety measures. Milo knew that careful preparation would protect the association and the residents from any misunderstandings in the future. The unfair fine had taught him the value of knowledge, planning, and unity. One evening, Milo stood on the dock watching the sunset over the lake. The water reflected the orange and pink sky, and a gentle breeze moved the boat slightly. He thought about the journey so far, the unfair fine, the research, the meetings, the legal registration, and the improvements made with neighbors. Milo smiled, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. The problem had become a triumph. Milo realized that leadership was not about power or control. It was about fairness, careful planning, and listening to others. The Lake Association had become a model of cooperation, showing that communities could solve problems together. Milo felt proud, knowing that he had turned frustration into action and action into positive change. The HOA representatives had left with understanding and respect. Milo knew that future interactions with them would be calmer and more productive. He had shown that fairness, preparation, and community spirit were stronger than fear or intimidation. The lake was safe, enjoyable, and fair for everyone, and Milo knew that this was only the beginning. As night fell, Milo sat on his pontoon boat, looking at the stars reflected on the water. The lake was calm, peaceful, and full of life. He felt proud of the community, proud of the association, and proud of what they had achieved together. The unfair fine had started as a challenge, but now it had become a symbol of fairness, teamwork, and hope. Milo smiled, knowing that the lake and the community around it was stronger than ever. Milo woke up early with the sunlight reflecting on the calm lake. The water sparkled as usual, but today felt different. After weeks of preparation, teamwork, and community work, the unfair fine from the HOA had been challenged successfully. Milo knew, however, that there was one final step: resolving the fine completely and ensuring that the lake remained safe and fair for everyone in the long term. He started his day by reviewing all the documents carefully. Milo had copies of the association registration, signed statements from neighbors, records of meetings, and detailed proof of the improvements they had made around the lake. He had even kept photos of floating platforms, docks, safety signs, and families enjoying the water. Milo felt confident. Every detail was in order, showing the strength and fairness of the new lake association. Milo called another meeting with the neighbors to discuss the final step. "We have already achieved so much," he said, smiling at the gathered residents. "The lake is safe, fun, and fair, but we also need to address the unfair fine. We need to make sure it does not affect anyone else, and that justice is recognized officially." The neighbors nodded, ready to support Milo and the association in resolving the issue completely. The discussion turned to strategy. Milo explained that they could present all the evidence to the HOA and a formal claim for the fine to be reversed. With the documentation, the legal registration, and the signed statements from residents, the association had a strong case. Milo emphasized that their goal was fairness and transparency, not conflict or revenge. "We want the fine removed, and we want the HOA to acknowledge that our lake association is fair and legal," Milo said firmly. The neighbors agreed and offered their support. Some volunteered to provide witness statements, while others helped organize additional documentation. Milo felt proud of how the community had come together. From frustration over an unfair fine, they had built a system of cooperation, safety, and fairness. Now everyone had a role in ensuring that justice was recognized. Milo prepared a formal claim and submitted it to the HOA. He included every detail: the improvements made, the safety measures implemented, the legal registration of the association, and the signed statements from residents. Milo's letter was clear, professional, and respectful. It explained the unfairness of the original fine and requested acknowledgement and correction. Milo felt confident. He had done everything carefully and fairly. Within a few days, Milo received a response. The HOA acknowledged the claim and admitted that the fine had been unfair. They also recognized the legality of the new lake association and promised not to interfere with its operations. Milo smiled. The letter was short but powerful. It confirmed that careful planning, fairness, and community unity could overcome even the strictest opposition. But Milo did not stop there. With advice from the neighbors and legal guidance, he decided to request compensation for the stress and trouble caused by the fine. It was not about personal gain. Milo wanted to ensure that the HOA understood the importance of fairness and the value of respecting residents' rights. The request was formal, supported by documentation and evidence of community support. Weeks later, Milo received another letter. The HOA agreed to a settlement, paying the Lake Association a significant sum for the inconvenience and unnecessary stress caused by the unfair fine. Milo felt a mixture of relief and excitement. This settlement would allow the association to further improve the lake and ensure safety and enjoyment for all residents. It was a fair conclusion to a long journey that had started with frustration and confusion. Milo called a special meeting with the neighbors to share the news. "The unfair fine has been resolved," he said, smiling at the gathering. "The HOA has acknowledged our association and provided support to improve the lake further. This is not about money, it is about fairness, safety, and community." The residents cheered. Their hard work and patience had paid off. Milo felt proud of everyone who had contributed to this success. The association decided to use the settlement to make several important improvements. Milo led projects to expand the docks, create additional floating platforms for children, add picnic areas, and install safety equipment like life jackets and first aid kits. Volunteers helped paint benches, clean the shore, and plant flowers. The lake began to look even more beautiful, organized, and welcoming. Families enjoyed the improvements immediately, laughing, sharing stories, and playing safely. Milo also organized a small festival to celebrate the success of the association and the resolution of the unfair fine. Neighbors came with food, drinks, and games for children. Music played softly in the background, and the lake reflected the sunlight beautifully. Milo welcomed everyone, feeling proud of what they had achieved together. The festival was not just a celebration of the lake, but of teamwork, fairness, and the power of community. During the festival, Milo spoke to the residents. "What started as a problem, an unfair fine, has become something wonderful. We have shown that fairness, knowledge, and teamwork can solve challenges. This lake is now a symbol of what we can achieve together. Safety, fairness, and enjoyment are our priorities, and we will continue to work together to make sure the lake remains a place everyone can enjoy." The residents cheered and clapped. Inspired by Milo's words, children ran across the docks, laughing and playing on the floating platforms. Parents relaxed on benches, sharing stories and enjoying the sunshine. Milo watched quietly, feeling proud and satisfied. The lake was no longer just a place to enjoy the water. It had become a symbol of community, fairness, and cooperation. The unfair fine had been transformed into a journey that brought everyone closer together. Milo also continued to maintain communication with the HOA, ensuring that all future issues were handled respectfully and fairly. He emphasized cooperation rather than conflict, and the HOA began to respond positively. Milo realized that this approach was not only effective, but also encouraged long-term harmony in the community. The lake was now managed by people who cared, not by fear or strict rules. Over the following weeks, Milo led more projects with the neighbors. They installed benches with shade, added small bridges across sections of the lake, and organized floating flower gardens for children to learn about plants. Milo encouraged everyone to participate, ensuring that every resident felt included and valued. The lake became a place of beauty, learning, and joy. Milo felt proud of the association and the teamwork that had made all of this possible. One evening, Milo sat on his pontoon boat, watching the sun set over the calm water. Families were leaving, children were waving goodbye, and neighbors were smiling and chatting. Milo felt a deep sense of satisfaction. What had started as a small problem, a $3,000 fine, had become a story of fairness, leadership, and community unity. The lake was no longer a source of stress or frustration. It was a source of joy, connection, and pride. Milo thought about the lessons learned. Leadership was not about control or power. It was about fairness, preparation, and listening to others. The association had shown that careful planning, teamwork, and respect could solve even the most frustrating problems. Milo smiled, knowing that this was only the beginning. The lake would continue to improve, and the community would continue to grow stronger together. The next morning, Milo organized another small gathering. Residents came with their boats and families. They took turns sharing their thoughts and experiences. "I feel safe letting my children play here now," said one parent. "The rules are fair and everyone works together," said another. Milo listened carefully, feeling proud and happy. The lake had become more than just water and docks. It had become a place of trust, respect, and shared responsibility. Milo then reflected on his own journey. The unfair fine had been upsetting at first, but it had led to something remarkable. He had learned about rules, law, planning, and community management. He had worked with neighbors to turn frustration into positive action. Milo realized that challenges could become opportunities if approached with patience, knowledge, and determination. By the end of the day, the lake was quiet again. Milo sat on the dock, watching the reflection of the sunset on the water. The floating platforms swayed gently. The docks looked perfect, and the children's laughter from earlier still echoed in his mind. Milo felt peaceful and proud. The unfair fine had started a journey that had ended in fairness, community, and joy. As night fell, Milo looked at the stars above the lake. The water mirrored the sky, calm and beautiful. He thought about the future. New projects, more community gatherings, and the continued safety and enjoyment of the lake. Milo knew that the Lake Association would keep thriving because it was built on fairness, teamwork, and respect. The unfair fine had been a spark, but the result was far greater. A lake that belonged to everyone and a community that had grown stronger together. Milo smiled, knowing that he had turned a problem into a triumph. The lake was now a symbol of what could be achieved with determination, preparation, and fairness. Families enjoyed the water safely, neighbors supported each other, and the HOA recognized the value of cooperation. Milo felt proud and happy. The lake was no longer just a place, it was a story of justice, celebration, and community spirit.